had this interesting conversation with someone on the phone this week where they were tossing up whether or not they could justify the expense of getting a buyer's agent involved rather than just doing it themselves. And so I unpacked that conversation a little bit, and the good news is that they were actually a property investor already, which is great, because let's be honest, not everyone in this country actually goes ahead and buys an investment property. And so I said to them, how's the property going? They said, great. The property looks after itself. It's the rent comes in, helps covers all the costs, so it's been a really great investment. I said, okay, so how's the capital growth gone? And I said, well, that's the thing. The capital growth actually hasn't gone as well as I thought that it actually would. And so I said, okay, tell me a little bit more. They said, well, in 2005, I bought it for $275,000. I said, okay, based on that scenario, if you had got a buyer's agent to help you buy it, they would have been able to help you get at least 7%, which is a 10-year doubling cycle. So here we are in 2015. So that property should be worth $550,000 now, right? And he goes, well, that's the thing. It's not. It's worth $400,000. So straight away I've said, you've actually left $150,000 on the table as an opportunity cost 10 years down the track as you look back and see what you've done. And you can't actually get those 10 years back. So that's the biggest challenge about being able to make the right decision now, because $150,000 is a lot of money to a lot of people. And if they had have engaged a buyer's agent to buy that, what would it cost them? $10,000 for a buyer's agency fee at that point? So $150,000 less the $10,000 for the buyer's agent, they still would have been $140,000 better off than doing it on their own. So I always think it's really interesting when someone says, look, I don't really need a buyer's agent's help, because equilibrium in this country is 70% of people buy real estate for them to live in and 30% buy as an investment. And the biggest mistake anyone can make is just because you bought a house to live in and you successfully did the transaction doesn't necessarily mean you know which property to buy to get the best outcome. Now, it was really interesting because the conversation was around, look, I would prefer, and I've talked about this a lot, I would prefer to buy an apartment which has the illusion of having less land than buying a house further out that has more land, because it really comes down to the land value. So if we had gone back to that scenario in 2005, he bought a house and land package in an outer western suburb of Melbourne where there was lots of land still available to be developed, versus maybe going and buying a 2-bedroom apartment in an old 1970s block that had 12 or 15 in the block, beautiful Edwardians, beautiful Victorians nearby, all of the lifestyle drivers within walking distance. Now that $275,000 apartment would be worth $550,000 if you had bought it in, an investment grade suburb, call it Elwood, call it South Yarra, call it Elstonwick, something like that, versus this house and land package which hasn't performed. So I think it's always hard for someone to see the benefit of spending money on a buyer's agent when you think that you can do it on your own. But the challenge is that you just can't get those years back. If you make a decision now, quite often it doesn't become obvious the ramifications or the outcomes of your decision until you've gone down the track, 5 or 10 years down the track. And if you realise, say you buy it at 37 and then realise at 47 that it hasn't performed, you can't get those years back. So it's really, really critical that you buy the right asset, and a buyer's agent can help you do that. Equally, not only has that person in that scenario where it should be worth $550,000 and it's now $400,000 and they've lost $150,000, but if you leverage that $150,000 extra equity at say 80%, what's that? You can borrow another $120,000. You can release that, and that can be a deposit on another investment property, which means this snowball starts to gather momentum, and it's the snowball running down the mountain, and your wealth accumulation over time can be quite significant. So even if you didn't use a buyer's agent after the very first purchase, at least you've set yourself up correctly from the beginning, and again made the best use of your years now, rather than going forward 10 years from now, looking in the rear view mirror and seeing that you could have made a different decision. So my idea is very simple. That particular investor has potentially lost $140,000 if they don't use a buyer's agent. So my message is clear. Asset selection is absolutely critical, and getting it right now is so important. It has such a huge impact on your financial well-being going forward that you should seriously at least at the very least, entertain the idea of getting some professional advice to help you make that right decision.